Jim Schowalter is the commissioner of Minnesota's budgeting agency, and he joins me now to provide more details about the budget forecast. Thanks for being here.
Thank you.
I always like to start with the picture on the cover of the forecast book. This year, it's two classic cross-country skiers forging straight ahead on a groomed path in pristine conditions. Does that sum up the view of the state's budget situation?
No, but probably the first thing that everyone should know is we were drawn to the picture because there was a lot of snow. You know, we were preparing the forecast. We were watching all the warnings of snowstorms, and so it seemed appropriate to have a lot of snow on the cover of this particular forecast. I would actually say that there's a couple of things that are parallel. One is that, as steady as she goes. It's like, it's a flat terrain. That's kind of what we're seeing right now, that this forecast is pretty similar to what we had anticipated in the last forecast. In addition, looking forward into the next couple of years, it's like things are at a fairly steady kind of pace. But I would actually say that where we're at the beginning of a biennium with the legislature set to figure out the path of the next couple of years, it's more like, is it this trail or do we go over this trail? There's all kinds of different directions that we could still go.
So we can't see over the horizon and there's a lot of options.
Yeah, that's right.
So the projected surplus, as you just mentioned, now is about the same as it was in the November forecast. The difference being the February number has included an inflation calculation thanks to a new law that was passed just last week. Republicans argue that calculating inflation on the spending side automatically grows the size of government. What's your view on that?
I disagree, but I understand the argument. And either way, I think the important function of the forecast is to get everyone the information about what's going on in the economy, what's happening, how that impacts state revenues and spending, and pulling it all together so that everyone can orient where they're at. Fighting over what the number is less important to me than the process of getting everyone oriented to where we're at, what are the risks, what are the challenges, what are the opportunities. And that is where we go. So as far as autopilot, I think one of the things that's not well understood is that the forecast already had some inflation in it on the expenditure side. So I didn't hear that being auto spending. It was just that there's some programs that already have adjustments, whether it's in long-term care or other areas where there's already adjustments in place. So this is really just to say we're not favoring some parts of the budget over others. We're trying to give you a set of numbers that has expenditures all sort of prepared in the same way, compared with revenues that are actually compared in a similar way, all for the impact of inflation.
You also said at the forecast that you expect revenues to exceed projected spending throughout the forecast horizon, and that the balance remaining in those projections is about $5 billion for each of the next two biennia. So that $5 billion is called a structural balance. Is that the same as the budget reserve, or is this different? What does that $5 billion structural balance mean?
It's a great question, and it's amazing that you and everyone continue to go to our forecast because there's so many kind of inside language. I want to just sort of define a couple of them. One is sort of one-time money, which is money that was collected in previous years or previous biennia, and it's rolling forward. It's not recurring. It's something that was left over from prior years. Structural balance is like money in and money out in this year or in this biennium. And when I said there was $5 billion in structural money, it meant that in that biennium, in that 2-year period of 24-25, that we were expecting to collect about more than $5 billion more than we were expecting to spend. So that's basically an opportunity for the governor and the legislature to change the law, whether it's to reduce taxes, reduce spending, increase spending, to adjust given that orientation of where we're at.
So lawmakers and the governor will decide how that $5 billion should be used going forward. But additionally, then, we are still left with $12.5 billion that is truly one-time money that could be used maybe to start a paid family medical leave program, the upfront costs for that, or refunds to taxpayers even above and beyond, tax cuts, or perhaps a bonding bill. Do I have that right?
Yeah, that's right. There's that one-time money, that carry forward is most appropriately used for one-time purposes, because once you spend that $12 billion, it's gone. You won't get to spend it again in the third or fourth year or the fifth year of the future budget forecast. So those are some one-time things that really change policy, help people, and move the dial on how our communities work and the success of Minnesotans. There's a lot of those ideas out there. They're great. And that's going to be part of the debate. I think the challenge is always, that's a lot of one-time money. And so how do we use it constructively and smartly so that we don't create obligations going into the future and also have maximum impact, so that we're not just spending it because we can, but we're actually really thoughtfully, carefully making sure that we have really big impact in our communities.
Is it conceivable that the legislature could discern such an important decision in session is sometimes feels long, but sometimes goes in the blink of an eye?
It does. It's fast. But, we have a lot of smart people, a lot of ideas floating around, and that's where the debate comes in. It's a great thing, and it's messy. But I think, that's the challenge. And with this forecast, the information's out there, and we'll be putting together some new governor's recommendations, putting those on the table in a couple of weeks. That'll provide at least one set of tracks for people to follow going into the future. But then the House and Senate both will make their own decisions, and we'll see where we go.
I mentioned a bonding bill just a moment ago, and a budget session is typically not a bonding session, but there does seem to be a lot of interest in a bonding bill this year, maybe even two bonding bills this year. How much can the state responsibly borrow for a traditional bonding bill, or should the state not borrow and use the surplus, or a combination of both? What are your thoughts on that?
I love that question, and we actually got that question in a cold day when we released the last capital budget about a year ago. And it was, the budget was already anticipating a surplus, and it was like, why would you go borrow? And the answer is a couple things. One is it's a program. It is an ongoing set of investments by Minnesota in the infrastructure and communities of the state that shouldn't be just driven if we have good budget times or bad budget times. And that bonding element is part of that. The other thing is, because of the bonds, it's a long-term investment with multi-year payout. It helps us also just make sure we're putting it into things that have multi-year benefit, so that the benefits to people in year 5, 10, or 30 are also paid by people in years 5, 10, and 30, so that we don't underinvest in the things that make our communities vibrant. So, we can put cash into it, absolutely. We, in fact, in the governor's recommendation, went up to the limit. It was around $2.2 billion is like the debt threshold based upon our guidelines and based on this forecast. But because there was no bill last year, the costs of the proposal got a lot more expensive, and so we had to put in cash just in order to afford the same proposals. It's almost 20% more. So, you think about cost of delay or hidden charges. The inability to pass a capital bill last year, it passed on a multi-$100 million charge to everyone just to do the same things.
So more to come on the bonding. As always, Commissioner Schowalter, it's a pleasure. Thank you for coming.
Thank you.